Hi guys, I'm still looking up with my head in the stars and trying to see as far as I can. And with all the crazy news in the world, I feel like I'm in such a race for time here to tell you all the wondrous things I've been seeing. God keeps blowing my socks off with all these signs in the heavens, so I don't even put my socks on anymore. And John has taken me on such a fascinating journey. I hope you will hit the subscribe button, and I'll do my best to show you what all I'm finding. Although I feel like my head is getting so overloaded with info, I keep forgetting things, and my notes are a scattered mess. I'll get myself organized somehow, but it's not always easy for cats like me. This is episode 3 of my new Puzzle Pieces series. Since I see a small gathering showing up at my new website, I'll be trying to post more and more stuff over there. There is a free subscribe button, so you don't have to pay to be a member and get some perks I'm offering over there. I'll no doubt be posting some screenshot sneak peeks from videos that I'm still working on too. This video is going to be a lot to take in. So, as promised, we are picking up here exactly where we left off in episode 2. Last time I was showing what Nissan 14 looked like for several different years. But most of all, I'm looking at the year 30 AD, because the other years, the sun was setting in Taurus, and the signs in the heavens those years on Nissan 14 don't really tell me anything. The year 30 AD was 40 years before the Second Temple was destroyed. And in 30 AD, April 5th is the official date of Nissan 14, the day the Jews sacrificed the lambs for Passover. And then Passover would begin at sundown. I actually prefer to think of April 6th as Nissan 14 that year, because for one, the moon was at its fullest and rose exactly at sunset instead of a little while before sunset. And it's also a lot better sort of star sign matchup to the Revelation 12 sign, as John described it, with the moon at Virgo's feet. This is a picture I made to show what both of those days looked like at the moment of sundown. And when I go with the April 6th date of the crucifixion, Virgo would have been giving birth to the moon during the Last Supper, which just makes more sense to me. This is a close-up of the two possible dates for the crucifixion in 30 AD. The position of the sun isn't that different, as it's only a 24-hour difference. So I'm okay with either date. It's not worth arguing over. The other planets that we will be looking at today won't really have changed much in 24 hours. So this is a quick close-up of both of the possible dates for the resurrection. Actually, this is sundown, so it would have been around the time Jesus was meeting up with the apostles in the upper room. So you can get a clear picture of where the sun traversed during the days that Jesus was in the tomb. Last time I was showing how there is a shift in our calendars over many long years due to the backdrop of our stars slowly moving over time. So when we try to match up particular star dates, like where the sun actually is on God's clock on any certain date, we find that since the time of Jesus, there is about a 27-day shift in our calendars. I know a lot of this stuff I've already talked about in videos going back to last year, but this series is more of trying to pull it all together. So I'm sure you've seen some of these screenshots before. during Nisan 14 of 30 AD. And it looks like in some of my pics, I'm showing the April 6th date, as you can see on the left-hand side, where the sun is more right on the foot of Aries, instead of between the two front feet in this artwork here. But at sundown, at the crucifixion, no matter which day you look at, Jupiter was sitting right on that band of Pisces, as if marking that spot. Or maybe like tying the cord to begin the church age. And that is the exact same spot on that band of the fish where the third and final great American eclipse happened on April 8th this year. The sun and the moon together for a total eclipse, as if cutting the cords to the age of Pisces. I mean, the fact that we are ending the age of Pisces right now, and Jupiter was on the cord to start the church age, and the sun and the moon on that cord to end the church age, is just too coincidental for me. And in this next screenshot of the menorah formation of the Revelation 15 sign, the gigantic blue arrow here is pointing out where the sun was during the crucifixion and where Jupiter, our king planet, was exactly in the menorah formation of this year on 3/13, perfectly taking his position in line at just the right moment. I mean, he's in the exact same spot. And Jupiter takes 12 years to complete his circuit around the heavens. And that planet also does a bit of dancing, going retrograde, like a little backwards and forwards, as he makes his rounds around the heavens in 12 years. So the fact that Jupiter is in these exact spots during such significant dates is really amazing. I mean, we are talking about well over 4,000 days. The odds of all this is unreal. And speaking of the 3/13 date and that spot on the band of Pisces, that is also exactly where the sun was the day John the Baptist was born, that I went over a couple of videos ago. And I'll recap in this series as well soon. But I was also showing how when the sun was sitting on the band of Pisces, the day that John the Baptist was born, on 3/13 of 3 BC, the planet Uranus, the Greek word for heaven, is also right there with him. And the 3/13 date is the very same date as both the Revelation 7 and Revelation 15 signs. Also, John the Baptist's current star date birthday is April 8th, the day of the Great American Eclipse, when the sun and the moon were both exactly together on that band of Pisces. So, where was this planet named Heaven during the crucifixion? Well, it was right there in the heart of Leo, right next to the king star Regulus. And that's right about where the first great American eclipse happened, back in 2017. Right there in the heart of Leo. We can't really see heaven or Uranus with our naked eyes, so I've got the red target on Uranus in the left-hand picture for sundown starting Passover of 30 AD. Well, it seems a great place for God to put Uranus, the Greek word for heaven, during the crucifixion, in the heart of Leo. Heaven in conjunction with the king star. Okay, let's just look at the rest of the planets on Crucifixion Day real quick. Mercury, during the crucifixion is standing right next to the 7 stars of Pleiades, which will all be appearing or lighting up just as soon as the sun set that day, with Mercury right there with them, as if holding them in his right hand, and also soon setting in the west. And we've got Venus, the bride or new church, right under the fish of Pisces. And we also find Saturn right on the back heel of one of the Gemini twins. And it just reminds me of what John the Baptist said to the priests and Levites that the Pharisees sent to question him in John's Gospel in chapter 1, verse 27. He writes, "He it is who coming after me is preferred before me, whose shoes latchet I am not worthy to unloose." And there we have it, during the crucifixion. And Saturn is right there on the heel of the Gemini twin. And our final planet of the 7 during the crucifixion is Mars, who is sitting right in front of the face of the goat of Capricorn. And as I progress in my series here and point out a lot of the heavenly matchups along the way, just think about it. I mean, what are the odds that these things would happen 2,000 years apart? And both of these 2 great American eclipses being in such significant spots when it comes to the crucifixion day. And there were such significant planets in those spots as well during the crucifixion too. But it's the second eclipse, that wedding ring eclipse over the U.S., that I've mostly talked about on my channel, because that one really blows my mind. I'll go into Jesus' birth and circumcision next time, but I just wanted to point out real quick with this matchup with Jesus' circumcision day on 9/18 of 3 BC, his 8th day of life, and the eclipse on the 8th day after the war in Israel started, which happened on Jesus' current birth date too, of October 7th. I mean, this eclipse of October 14th is the current star date of Jesus' circumcision day, and his current birth date star date would be October 7th. I've gone through it pretty extensively, but I'll go through it all again for this series next time. Just keep in mind that our calendars have shifted by 27 days since Jesus was born. It's pretty easy to determine how far the calendars have shifted from any point in time by just looking at the star dates of where our star actually was in the heavens on any given date in time. Like, I think our calendar has shifted by about 30 days since Jonah's eclipse date. And like the pictures in Stellarium that I was showing last time, with the day Israel crossed the Jordan, compared to our current star date of May 30th, which is the match. It is a shift of about 35 days in the count of the sun's movement, or actually how far our backdrop of stars has actually moved since the crossing of the Jordan. About 35 days. So anyway, this October 14th eclipse that everyone called the wedding ring eclipse, when John is giving the clues about the wedding ring eclipse of October 14th in Revelation 14, he specifically says he saw a lamb in heaven. In a previous video, I went over this Greek word here for Mount Sion, and it definitely means heavenly Jerusalem. I could go over it again in the next video. So anyway, I took John's clue and went back and looked at the Lamb in heaven during the wedding ring eclipse, because I'm learning what John is all about. And sure enough, during the wedding ring eclipse, I mean exactly at the moment that eclipse touched the U.S. at exactly 9:18 a.m., which is an exact heavenly match to the 9:18 date of the circumcision. But I backed out of the scene to look at the Lamb, just as John mentioned that he saw on this day in the first words of the chapter. And behold, at that exact moment of the eclipse at 9:18 a.m. from the eclipse location, there is the Lamb, Aries, diving into the earth, just the same as on Crucifixion Day at sundown. And Jupiter is right there at the foot of the Lamb. As Jupiter will be setting within minutes in this screenshot, probably within the minutes that it took for this eclipse to go zooming overhead at this location. And this eclipse of Revelation 14 was also called the Great Mayan Eclipse. And why the second mention of the 144,000, which was 7 years and 7 chapters from the Revelation 7 sign, where John also mentioned the 144,000. And like I said, Jupiter is not actually sitting still. He's bouncing around all over the place and going retrograde and prograde around Aries for several months as Jupiter makes its circuit around the heavens. As I'm showing here, I've got the red target on Jupiter and showing where it was at the 1st of September, and then at the end of December, and then mid-February, and then where Jupiter was during the final eclipse of April 8th, around the hind feet of Aries as it continues on its way around the heavens. And his orbit is 12 years around the ecliptic. So the idea that Jupiter is going to be exactly on that one front foot of Aries, right where the sun was on Crucifixion Day, is pretty extreme odds as it is. And there it is, at exactly the moment of the wedding ring eclipse, right on that one front foot of Aries, as it set within minutes in the west, exactly during the eclipse, when it first touched the U.S. at exactly 9:18 a.m., matching Circumcision Day of 918 in 3 BC, over 2,000 years ago. And a lot of people think I'm just nuts, but I'm only on episode 3, and I've barely even started on all this stuff. And the way my views are totally tanking on YouTube, by the time I get to the 2 episodes talking about Revelation 7 and 15 signs, I should be down to about 300 views on my videos. But I've already talked about it all on my channel already, so I'm probably just boring a lot of people at this point. One of the reasons that I really started to investigate Crucifixion Day is because John mentions the Lamb 29 times in Revelation. 29 times. So I did a word search in the King James Version for the word Lamb. The word Lamb is found 33 times in the entire New Testament. 33 times. And that is Jesus' number. And without John, we would only see the word Lamb twice in the entire New Testament. We would find it once in the book of Acts and once in Peter's first epistle. And in Acts, the word appears when Philip and the eunuch are reading from Isaiah. So I did a word search for the word lambs in the plural. And the word lambs is found twice in the entire New Testament. Once in the Gospel of Luke, when Jesus says, "Behold, I send you forth as lambs among wolves." And the second time we find the word lambs is in John, when Jesus tells Peter to feed my lambs. And that's it, just twice. I send you forth as lambs among wolves, and feed my lambs. And those are the facts. If it had not been for John, the word lamb or lambs would only be found 3 times in the entire New Testament, and only once in the Gospels, as Jesus said, "I send you forth as lambs." And then once in the book of Acts, and once in Peter's first epistle. Like I always say, where would we be without John? The lamb is very important to John. So, out of the 29 times that John mentions a lamb in Revelation, the first mention is in chapter 5, verse 6. And he says he beheld a lamb in heaven as it had been slain. And I know John is not literally seeing a bloody slain lamb or Jesus as he appeared on the cross, now standing in heaven 2,000 years into the future. So that's what prompted me to go back and really have a good look at Crucifixion Day and what was going on with that lamb in heaven diving into the earth at sunset as they put Jesus into the tomb, and saw the sun on that front foot of Aries that day. Chapter 5, verse 6. Let's look at the lamb in heaven on 5:6, just like John said in chapter 5, verse 6. And this is from Jerusalem, just after sunrise at 6:30 a.m. this year of 2024, on May 6th. When we see Aries ascending at sunrise with the sun on that hind foot in the artwork. It's crazy that we even find the moon right on that band of Pisces again. Even though the moon will be making the rounds once a month and be in that same spot, that's still pretty low odds that the moon would be in that exact spot over Jerusalem at sunrise on this day of this year. The moon moves pretty quickly throughout the day too. So let's just put what I believe was Resurrection Day of April 10th side by side with this date. Although my pick here is at sundown on the 10th, when Jesus would have already been meeting up with the apostles in the upper room. And it's about as good of a match as I could ask for. I find that just a bit too coincidental that John's first mention of a lamb in Revelation is the very verse number of 5:6, matching the date during our current times of 5:6, when the sun is on that hind foot of Aries, marking Resurrection Day. Well, I don't think it is coincidental at all, because there are other points in Revelation when John alerts us to the Lamb. And then when I look at the Lamb in heaven, it's like a total confirmation of what I had decided that he was talking about. So I want to show you a couple more things that indicate just how critical this spot on God's clock really is in the heavens. And this explains part of my overall timeline as well, and what completely led to the discovery of the Revelation 15 sign, which was mostly by accident. And I didn't even totally understand this incredible sign in the heavens that I was seeing until someone else took a good look at it and showed me what else was happening during those 40 days of what I was calling Noah's flood on my timeline. And it all just clicked. Noah's flood of troubles was in fact the filling of the 7 vials of wrath. I know I've shown this pic about 100 times, and I was going on about it for months back in 2022 before it happened, because I thought we were about to get raptured. The sun was just a few days past this May 6th date, when it was on the toes of that hind foot of Aries, like on Resurrection Day. So, on May 8th through the 9th of 2019, Israel was celebrating their 71st birthday, when the sun is still around that hind foot of Aries, which would be just past Resurrection Day. And then, exactly 42 months later to the day, we had the longest blood moon in 33 years, which occurred in the early hours of November 8th of 2022. 42 months later, exactly. And seeing that it was the longest blood moon in 33 years, and that Jesus' number is 33, and during the blood moon it was traversing that same area below the feet of Aries, and then setting in the west as the blood moon ended around the hind foot of Aries. Oh yeah, I was jumping up and down about it all, and putting out warnings, and of course nothing happened. But did it? I just recently found out from a friend even more astounding information about it going back exactly 84 years, which probably should just be a separate video, because it's a whole puzzle piece in itself. You can see why back in 2022, I was giving out the warning cry about this longest blood moon in 33 years that was going to happen around the hind foot of Aries, and how exactly 42 months previous to that night, Israel had been partying in the streets all night in celebration of their 71st birthday, which kicked in the Moses prophecy from Psalm 90, verse 10. And then, sure enough, 333 days later, Israel was attacked on October 7th last year, and on Jesus' current birth date, too. I really should have known. Then, around the end of the year last year, I saw that there was some sort of flood of troubles coming up on my timeline, and I wasn't sure what it was all about. But I knew something major was going to start on Leap Day of 2024, which was also 40 days before that third and final eclipse on April 8th. And on my timeline, I was calling Leap Day the start of Noah's flood of troubles. And I even thought we might get raptured or something on Leap Day, because what I saw coming wasn't a good sign. So part of my timeline was to send out the warnings 40 days before Leap Day, in case we were all raptured on Leap Day, or Noah's flood really started on Leap Day. I wanted to make sure that everyone had a 40-day warning of what was coming ahead. So that date that I had set was January 19th, 40 days before the flood of troubles, and warning everyone to get into their upper rooms and spend some real time with Jesus. Then, at 5 minutes to midnight on New Year's Eve, I'll never forget it, I suddenly got a message from God that said, "Check your signal." So I jumped onto Stellarium to see what I was missing, and looked at January 19th, the 40-day warning cry that I was putting out. And there it was, at exactly 7:77 a.m. from my vantage point. There was the signal, exactly matching that blood moon night, and the moon and Uranus together on that hind foot of Aries. So, of course, I was even more freaking out, especially when at that very moment, the fireworks all over my neighborhood started going off to announce New Year's at midnight. So I just ran outside laughing and watched the show, which ended up being a very surreal situation that I won't go into now. But that's not the only signal I was getting concerning Leap Day. As you can see in these side-by-side screen captures, one that we are familiar with now is the moment of moonrise on Crucifixion Day over Israel. The moon rising right at the foot of Virgo. And on the right side, from Jerusalem, on Leap Day, is the moon rising once again right at the foot of Virgo, at moonrise. My white line in the middle is the horizon line in the pictures. So, starting Passover in 30 AD, the moon rose at Virgo's foot right after 6 p.m. And then, on Leap Day of 2024, the moon rose right with the foot of Virgo, right after 10 p.m. that night. As I've shown in a lot of pics before, the next morning, the vials of wrath began to get filled, which concluded 40 days later, exactly during the eclipse, with the final vial, number 7, Mars, the god of war. This is an overall view of the east to west horizon from Jerusalem at the moment of moonrise on Leap Day 2024 at just after 10 p.m. And you can see that it looks much like Crucifixion Day. The only difference is that it is not the sun on the front foot of Aries that is setting at that moment, but it is our king planet Jupiter who is sitting in that position as the Lamb dove into the earth at moonrise. And I'm going to put the two pictures together that are 2,000 years apart. On the top, you are looking at Leap Day 2024, 40 days before the final eclipse, and perhaps the moment that Noah's flood of troubles really began on my timeline. Because by the next morning, looking at sunrise from my location, Mercury, the messenger, had already filled himself full of wrath by sunrise. And the sun would shortly follow that afternoon on March 1st. The lower picture is what I believe is Crucifixion Day of 30 AD, which just seems to match up slightly better with all the other stuff I've been seeing. If we back up one night in both of these pictures, it's still going to be mostly a match. Just remember from the beginning of this video that on April 5th, a day earlier, I felt it sounded better for the night of the Last Supper, with Virgo giving birth to the moon that night. Some might think that this sign on Leap Day was not that unusual, but it was. Jupiter takes 12 years to complete its orbit around the ecliptic and through all the constellations. And it also does a little sort of tango dance as well, as we will see it go retrograde now and then. So there was a small handful of days in 12 years when we could claim it was around the front feet of the Lamb, Aries, but only a handful in 12 years. And it just so happened to have been on some of the most key dates of all. So this video is getting long enough now, and I'll pick right back up where we left off next time. Have a blessed day, my friends, and keep looking up.